Greetings, mighty companions.
Hello, friends and family. How are you doing here on another Sunday night, which this will be whatever time this is for you, wherever you're located. This would be the time that we're doing our Sunday night broadcast. It's 7 o'clock here.
Mountain Daylight Time.
Mountain Daylight Time. And we encourage you to come and join us every week as we come together and open up A Course in Miracles and study together.
Wow. And when you open up A Course in Miracles to study together, the wildest and most wonderful things happen that you could have never planned for or never even imagined.
And Diana says 8 p.m. Central here. All right.
Right on. And where are you, Diana? Where are you that it's Central? 8 p.m. And hi, Demi, lovely to see you. So we are going to be talking about Course in Miracles like we always do. And we did our random number generator prayer beforehand. Thank you, Madison, Wisconsin. And we did our random number generator prayer to see what Spirit chose for all of us for this particular session. And what it came up with is in the teacher's manual section or question number 15. Is each one to be judged in the end? That's the name of the question in the teacher's manual that we're going to be studying tonight. Okay? So, yes?
Is each one to be judged in the end? You know, you look at what's going on in the world right now, and there seems to be a lot of judgment going on. We got wars breaking out. We got economies, collapsing and falling apart. We just had a worldwide virus pandemic, and a lot of people believe this is the judgment of God.
What are they? So many people go, this is like the end times. You know, you got the plague. We had the plague. We had
financial disasters.
Yes, a collapse. You know,
wars,
exactly.
Rumors of wars.
All the signs of the last days. And the last days, what is that? The last days of judgment.
Yes,
you know,
the judgment of God.
I hear that all the time when I go look in my YouTube feed. Is, you know, are these the last days? It's like the apocalypse? And Course in Miracles has something to say about the last judgment. And as everything with the Course in Miracles, it is the complete opposite of everything that we had ever learned about judgment, about God, about the last judgment, about the final, the end times, all that. Thank God.
Well, Diana, we look forward to this too. This is my favorite time of the week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights, because it really is the time of the week where we get to share A Course in Miracles, we get to read it together, and it really forces Anna and I to be on our best behavior with the Spirit of God, because it gets us into opening up the book and reading together with you.
That's right.
And then channeling what Spirit would have to say on the subject.
Yes.
You know, if you think about all of these movies that we've seen over the years, where you see some guy usually standing on the corner of a downtown city, and the guy's holding a big billboard in front of him, and he's got a little rope around his neck with the billboard holding it, and it says, God's judgment is coming, or God's judgment is here.
The end is near.
The end is near. What is the first, if we're being honest, what's the first thing that, without exercising our brain at all, just out of sheer reaction to that, our first reaction to that is fear, because we've been taught that, well, when God's judgment comes,
it ain't gonna be good.
No, there's gonna be lightning flashing in the sky.
All the bad things you did.
There's gonna be boulders rolling down the hill. There's gonna be earthquakes.
There's gonna be plagues, floods, famine, war. You know, all the things are going on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so. The title I put on this was the final say regarding the final say from on high. When in all of our religions, one of the cores of all of our religions, whatever they are, has a lot to do with God's judgment. You know, how God judges you, when God judges you, what God judges you for, what are the laws and the rules you must obey that God gave you, that if you don't obey, God's going to judge you. And so, really, it really is at the core of all of our religions. And even if you weren't part of a religion, the judgment is a core part of our belief systems, you know. And so the whole question of what is God's judgment? We always hear that God is judgmental, that God is judging us, as if that's what God does, as if God is the author of judgment. And it makes for the core of our existential guilt as humans. Well, obviously, I'm judgeable, and I am going to be judged, and I'm guilty. You know, we've all in some way embodied that and integrated that belief that God is judgmental and is judging us and not judging us with only love. And it makes up the core of our existential guilt, whether we're religious or not. And so this section really is at the core of our release from our existential guilt as human beings. You know, and also it gives it teaches the truth about God. You know, this is where A Course in Miracles departs from what we all learned about God. Okay, and so we're going to hear about, you know, is God judging, and how does God judge God's children? What's that all about? Is it something that we need to be afraid of? Are we guilty? Are we going to be judged? And is it gonna be bad? And do I need to be afraid as a human being? Do I need this existential fear of God that is so deep that I'm not even conscious of my fear of God? Right? You know, especially if we're not religious people anymore, we still hold this unconscious fear of God. And being afraid of God is like being afraid of the one source of your happiness that there is. You know,
it's really a silly concept. Could you imagine that this little thing of chapstick is something that God created? God, the perfection of everything, created something. Now let's say this chapstick was you and me, but God created you and me, and then God, after God created out of God's own perfection
and unconditional love,
made us, and then after God made us, how much sense does it make that God would look at us and then pull the cap off and then go,
ew,
let's see, is this working right?
Is this good enough?
I mean, I made it. Is it good enough? Is it working right? Let's see, you turn this thing and it comes up so I can put it on my lip. Yeah, it's doing that just perfectly. I can put the cover back on it so that it doesn't get dried out. Perfect. I can put it and store it in my pocket. It's so small, and it's perfect. Well, after I made it, me being God, now I'm gonna be mad and want to destroy it and torture it and beat it up, and it's just really a joke the way we've been taught that God has made us, and then God's going to want to turn around with his own creation and to judge it to be bad.
Exactly.
God made something, you and I, and now God's going to turn around and judge it to be bad. It's just the most silly notion you've ever heard in the world, but as Anna was saying, it doesn't matter what religious denomination that we've been raised up in. We can't really blame one or two of them. They're all pretty much like the same. They say that we were born God made us, and then after we live a certain amount of time, then of course we're going to die and come to heaven, wherein God can judge what God himself had made.
Exactly.
So if something's wrong with us, wouldn't it be the fault of the maker? Like if you bought a Toyota car and then it broke after it was made, wouldn't it be the fault of the maker, of the manufacturer, or would it be the car's fault? The car didn't have anything to do with it. The car
didn't make itself.
It just came to be because of the maker. And yet we've been taught that the maker of the vehicle is going to judge its own vehicle that it made. So let's dive into it and unravel this silliness that we've been taught growing up, and maybe we'll be ready to take on a new lesson. This whole week we've been reading our daily lessons together, and what would you say the theme of this week's lesson's been?
It's been I accept the function that my Creator gave me, which is not to work at something I hate till I die. Is my function that my Creator gave me was to be happy.
And we've been taught our function is to make Creator happy.
Right, exactly. Which means to fear God's judgment. That's what we learned, that your function was to make God happy by fearing God's judgment of us.
Yeah, as if God made us because God wasn't already happy and needed to make something to make God happy.
Yes.
God was already happy. And just extending that made us for the purpose of us to be happy, not us to walk around going, woe is me, I'm so horrible, I'm always doing something wrong. Then all we're doing is really condemning the perfection of what God made.
Yes, exactly.
Which is much better, by the way, than chapstick.
Absolutely. Exactly. All right. So where we're at is we are in the teacher's manual. On the 15th question, is each person to be judged in the end? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. And the answer is indeed yes, with an exclamation point. Yes, everyone is to be judged in the end. And that's because no one can escape God's final judgment, because who could flee forever from the truth? But God's
which tells us right there in sentence 3, who could flee forever from the truth, means that we have been fleeing all this time from the truth.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So it's saying, who can flee forever from whatever is the truth? And what's the truth? It's whatever the source of creation has established truth to be. That's what the truth is. It's what the author of reality created reality to be. That's the truth. And so who can flee forever from what is reality, what is truth, okay? He says, but the final judgment, God's final judgment, will not come until God's final judgment is no longer associated with fear.
Or you could say no longer associated with the way we've been taught.
Yes.
God's final judgment will be.
Exactly. So, yes, God is judging everybody in the end, but you won't know what God's final judgment is until you stop associating God's last judgment, God's final say on you, with fear. We've been associating God's final say on us with fear, as if God's final say on us could be condemning, could be fearful. Okay? So and that's what's different about A Course in Miracles and what we've all learned from the world about God and judgment.
Yeah, when you can finally see that guy in the movie standing with the billboard on the corner going, God's judgment is coming, or the end is near. And immediately, without hesitation, you can go, right on, yeah, that's wonderful.
Finally.
Bring it on, yes.
Finally, exactly.
Then you know you're ready for it.
I mean, who among us did not learn that God is judgmental and judging us with a and judging us according to a lot of rules and a lot of laws that we obviously always fail all day long. Who among us did not learn about a judgmental God, right? And like we were saying earlier, even if you were not raised with religion, you still have this existential human fear of Creator, as if Creator is a judgmental force that is judging us, and not judging us with only unconditional love, because who'd need to judge if there's only unconditional love, but judging us with anger, condemnation, exactly. And so it says, so God's final judgment will not come into our awareness until we no longer associate God's final judgment on us with fear. Not until we stop associating God's final judgment with fear will we go, oh, God's judged me. Oh, wow. And it has nothing to do with fear. It's unconditional love. All right. Who knew?
I want God's judgment.
Gosh, exactly. All this time that I've been afraid of God and feeling existentially guilty, not knowing why, I could have been having a good time. I could have been enjoying myself knowing that I'm innocent, that I'm not a guilty sinner who should be, feeling guilty about everything I do that's fun and joyous. Mm-hmm. I could have been enjoying myself and loving myself unconditionally and loving everybody else unconditionally. I could have been enjoying my life instead of sitting there, worried about judgment. Judgment on me, judgment on others, etc. But it's all right. Better late than never. And since we're eternal, it's all good. You don't have to worry that you've been wasting any time. Time ain't real. And we are eternal beings.
Yeah, if you look at most everything in the world, like, I don't know how many of you can remember, I do, when AIDS came onto the scene. And so many people seem to be going, this is God's judgment on humanity.
Right.
Or when the coronavirus.
Yes, exactly. Same thing. This is God's judgment.
This is God's judgment on humanity.
Exactly.
And anytime, it's so weird, anytime something bad happens,
I was just about to say,
we tend to associate that coming from good. How do you get bad out of good?
You're right. Even if we're not religious, okay? So even if we're not religious, if we start experiencing one bad thing after another in our life, we unconsciously begin to go, am I being punished?
Yep, God's
even
mad
if
at
you
me.
say you don't believe in God, even if you're like a non-religious person, maybe an atheist, it's automatic because it's built in. Things are going bad. I wonder if I'm being punished. Like, what did I do?
Maybe this is my karma.
Exactly. Maybe you say karma, and so we all associate suffering with some kind of punishment, which means judgment.
Which is associating it with, I deserve this.
Yes, and associating it with, the Creator. So we've all been associating God, Creator, with judgment. And he's saying it's true, God does judge, but not at all like you think. So when you hear, we're going to hear in here what God's judgment is on God's creation. And so it's like the final say, the final word. This is how God is judging us all, period, end of story. Okay? And it's wonderful. You'll love it. So Tricia says, okay, so we're in Teacher's Manual, question number 15, is each one judged to be in the end? And Tricia, since you're asking, we are in Lakewood, Colorado. We are back in Colorado. Okay. And Diana says, thank goodness it's now how I have thought. Now how I have thought. Beautiful. It's not how I have thought. Beautiful. Exactly. So, okay, so it says, God's final say will not come until God's final say on you is no longer associated with fear. Now, one day, each of us is going to welcome God's final say on us. And on that very day, God's final say on us will be given us. Okay, and here's what we're going to hear when we accept God's final word on us. Okay, the final word. What the final word is? God, we will hear our sinlessness proclaimed not just in our hometown, but around and around the world, setting the world free as God's final say on us is received.
Man, how great
Wow.
is that? You know, in our world, like in Colorado, for example, the judgment if you're smoking marijuana is you're innocent because it's legal.
Right.
But you can go around and around the world to somewhere else. Well, they might say, well, your judgment over here is guilty.
Right.
And I love this, that God's final say, God's final judgment.
Final word.
And if you want to know the truth, it's been the judgment from the beginning.
All along, exactly.
It's been the way it is all along.
No matter what you think you did.
Is around and around the world. You can go to Texas, Colorado, to Japan, to China, to Russia, and God's verdict will be the standard way it is across the board.
That's right.
It won't change no matter
Exactly.
because you're on this side of the border or that side of the border. It will be the same here, now, and forever.
Exactly. So yeah, you have been judged by God, and God's judgment on you is the same as it's always been, the same as it's going to be, no matter what you think you've done, no matter what you do from this point forward. And God's judgment on you is this: you are sinless. That's it. You are sinless now and forever. You can't make yourself guilty. You can't make yourself guilty no matter what you do, no matter what you've done.
No matter how hard you try.
No matter how hard you try. God is just like the loving parent that the little child comes to and, you know, and always says, oh, well, it's just a mistake. You're totally innocent, child. It's just a mistake. You know, you can't change reality, my dear. You know, you can't affect reality by anything you do. So that's why you can never be guilty. You're always guiltless. Now, you can make mistakes. That is obvious. You can make mistakes. We can choose fear over love. You can make mistakes. But you cannot be sinful. You cannot be guilty. And that is God's final say, final word, final judgment on all of us, on all of God's creations. Okay? That's it. That's it. And when we're ready to receive God's final word, God's final judgment on us, and to hear that it has nothing to do with fear, we're not associating with fear, then we'll hear it. Then we'll hear it. I'm gonna unplug this. Woo, baby, it's getting hot in here. Talking about God's final judgment is getting me all hot.
And we tend to joke around about A Course in Miracles that a lot of people don't seem to like A Course in Miracles. One reason is when you start hearing this kind of literature or curriculum, you think, well, I could see how God, you know, could release me.
Yeah, judge me as guiltless.
And see me as innocent because after all, you know,
I mean,
the mistakes I made were not intentional.
Exactly.
And they weren't really that bad.
And I did the best I could, but them.
But there's this other person over here, and that's where the struggle comes in.
That's right.
Because for us to be released, we have to be willing to release everyone.
That's right, exactly.
And until we release everyone, then we're not releasing anything.
We're not willing to accept the final judgment of our own guiltlessness. You know, until we're willing, like Greg said, until we're willing to accept that they are sinless and guiltless no matter what, then we can't accept that for ourselves.
Hello, Robin.
Hi, Robin. Look, Robin. Oh, this is one of Robin's scarves that she sent me. Isn't it beautiful?
It's so amazing because
Isn't that beautiful?
while you're talking.
Robin, you inspired Greg. Greg is now running off to get his scarf.
No, I'm not getting a scarf.
Oh, okay.
these angel
Oh,
wings.
look
The
at
scarf
that.
reminded me just like
Oh,
these.
that's
Look at
awesome.
these little wings.
Oh, I didn't even see them.
These wings all over.
Yes,
I
I
love it.
just put this on for the first time and I didn't notice that there's little wings there. So, thank you, Robin. This is so beautiful.
I
I'm
knew you had
telling
good
you.
taste, Robin.
Yeah, she does. My God, wait till you see those scarves. You're going to be wanting to wear those scarves. They're amazing.
All right.
Greg likes scarves too. I love it. Okay. Robin says she hopes that you can find one. Oh yeah, there's a lot he's gonna love. Like this one, for instance. So, all right, wonderful. So it says, one day each one of us will welcome God's final judgment on us. And on that day where we welcome God's final judgment, then we will hear our sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world, setting the whole world free as God's final judgment on us is received. Dang. So when I say, okay, all right, God, what's your final judgment on me? Oh, I'm sinless and guiltless forever, no exceptions, no conditions. Oh my God. And that my acceptance of my own sinlessness is something that travels around the world and sets all the world free. That's not bad.
I'm just realizing that sometimes Anna and I go out in our day and, we pull up to the gas station. In Mexico, they pump your gas for you. Just pull up to the gas station pump. But we'll start our day out, we'll go to the gas station, and the person at the gas pump will be just really happy. And how are you doing today? You look great. Can I get your windshield for you? And they wash that. And then you drive off from there, and then you get to the next place, and everywhere you go, it seems like you enter with such welcome, open arms. Mm-hmm. People just loving on you, just as
happy you came along.
Yeah, as opposed to going through that day where you feel like people are being angry with you and upset with you. But to hear your sinlessness proclaimed tells me that it's a nice way of saying wherever you go, you will experience the life of someone that's guiltless.
Yes,
You'll experience love. You'll experience joy and peace and harmony. Isn't that somewhat of a switch than our normal days?
Exactly. Going out into the world like, I'm going out to like slay the dragons, I got my sword and my spear, to defend myself against the onslaught, Whereas when you accept the truth, when you accept God's final say on you as guiltless, then literally that is something that goes around the world, setting everyone in the world free. Because what is everyone in the world imprisoned by? Everyone in the world is imprisoned by their own belief that they are guilty. That's the only chains that are chaining any creation of God. That's the only chains binding anyone, is a person's belief that they are guilty and that they deserve to be bound and imprisoned and punished. And so every time we accept God's final say on us as sinless and guiltless, then that is something that goes around the world and releases the chains that bind all the creations of God from guilt. Truly, that's the only thing that binds any person, any creation of God, is the belief that they are guilty. Now, and so that's that's God's final say, right? That is so beautiful. And that's also why A Course in Miracles, it is on the top 10 satanic book list, I must say. Right? Why is it A Course in Miracles is so vilified and or not recognized by more people? I mean, it's the most beautiful, powerful, loving thing you ever saw. Why isn't it more popular? That's what we always hear. When students come to class, we're like, why are there more people in this class? I don't get it at all. This is the most beautiful, powerful, releasing, miraculous thing ever. And the reason is because A Course in Miracles has been vilified by the ego, because A Course in Miracles is saying that God's only judgment on the children of God is guiltlessness. That's it. And now that idea alone would upend every single religion on earth. So that's no small thing. That's why the Course in Miracles is on the ego's top 10 satanic book list.
The world loves, just look around, the world loves a God that is not happy with God's own creation.
Yes.
The world loves a God like that. The world loves a God that's ready to throw lightning bolts at us and
throw us into hell, purgatory forever.
And to create a world where the world can swallow us up in earthquakes and volcanoes and torment us with diseases.
And somehow we deserve it.
That God is just waiting to
torture us.
Inflict all of this torment on us, which is nowhere where any of this is coming from. All of this is coming from our belief that there is a God like that.
Yes.
And so because of our belief in that, our belief is the power to manifest the experience. So then we go out in our day and the guy at the gas station pump is what do you want? And you know, all of a sudden this confrontational energy all day long is showing us the inward belief of what we believe about God.
Exactly.
That is the mirror reflection of our internal belief of how we see God.
Exactly. And the Course in Miracles says that our perception of God as angry and punishing and unforgiving and vengeful is a total projection. You know how sometimes, people project onto you what they are and what they do? Well, that's what we've done to God, and so now we all experience God as vengeful, punishing, all of that, judgmental. No, that's what we do. And we've projected that onto God. Now, so that's, now, in the Course in Miracles says that even though you don't know about it, it's unconscious, and you may not even believe in God. But if you believe that God is judgmental, you will have an unconscious existential guilt that you won't know where it's coming from. You'll just have this unconscious feeling that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve it all, that there's something wrong with you, and that an unconscious belief that the people don't like you. That's where that unconscious existential guilt and anxiety comes from. It's that belief that what created us is judging us unlovingly, right? And the Course in Miracles is like, no, that's a total projection. You're the one who's judging, unloving, condemning, punishing, etc. Okay? That's not God. That's not God at all. We, as a species, we've got God we learned about God all wrong. We learned about God all wrong. I mean completely wrong. Not just a little wrong, but completely wrong. We learned God is angry, judgmental, condemning, and punishing, and God is the exact opposite. Okay?
And I love how the Course says at one point, not that we've just been taught wrong, but it says that we've been badly taught.
Yeah.
And so we need to take that bad teaching and set it down for a moment, not even look at it, and then have an open mind, an open heart. In other words, have a teachable spirit, so that we can be re-taught again. If we're not willing to open up our minds to learn of a creator the way creator really is, or at least to consider another way that creator might be, then we're always going to be stuck in the old paradigm of what we've been experiencing.
Exactly. And I would imagine if you're watching this, you're like Greg and I, and we are ecstatic to hear that our Creator is not judging us with anything except love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're innocent, you're guiltless, just like I created you, and nothing can change that. So go have a nice day, go have fun, go enjoy yourself, be happy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, the next sentence is, this judgment, this is the judgment in which your happiness is. Okay, if you want to be happy, I mean truly happy, meaning not plagued by existential guilt and anxiety, the only way to do that is to accept the final judgment of God as you're guiltless now and forever. End of story. Go enjoy your life. Go be happy. You know.
Yeah, who could ever truly be happy in the mindset that God's not happy with you?
Exactly.
That, like, imagine yourself in a courtroom and you're standing behind a bench and you just know this jury is out for your head. And you just know the judge is out to put you in prison. How could you possibly be happy? But if you realize that that's not the case, that the jury unanimously sees you as innocent, that the judge sees you as innocent, not anybody in this courtroom has bought any of this hearsay that you are guilty. If you knew that, then happiness would just be effortless.
Absolutely.
You would just be happy going, I have nothing to fear.
Exactly.
I have nothing to be afraid of here in this courtroom because I am confident of the verdict before I even hear the verdict.
Exactly. The Course in Miracles calls God the higher court, that no matter how much the ego has built up the case against your innocence, the higher court dismisses the case against you. You know, no matter how good the ego's built up that case that you're guilty and you deserve punishment because of what you did. It don't matter how much the ego's built up that case against you. The higher court always reverses the lower court's decision and dismisses the case against you. You know, so it's like this. Yes, you may have been mistaken, but you're innocent. Go forth and be guilty no more. You know. So it says God's final judgment is your salvation, your freedom, your happiness. And God's final judgment on you of your sinlessness will set you free.
Which is what happens in court when you're standing there waiting to hear that judgment. And then when you really do hear it, that's what the author of A Course in Miracles is wanting to encourage you, is you're going to actually hear this.
That's right.
I didn't catch that until we were just reading tonight, that we will hear.
Yes.
You will actually hear our sinlessness around the world proclaimed. Well, when we're standing in that judgment hall and you hear that you are innocent, well, what happens to the innocent? They are immediately set free.
Yes.
They turn around and start hugging everybody and loving on everybody. I'm innocent, I'm free.
Exactly.
And you know, there's no prison time now, there's no punishment, there's no torture, there's no lake of fire for you, there's none of that.
Yes, exactly. And to be practical, anything that we are suffering with or through right now all comes down to the belief that we are being judged as guilty. Because if whatever was going on, if we knew that we weren't being judged as guilty, then we wouldn't be suffering around it. Okay? All the suffering comes from a feeling of guilt, and I'm being judged and I am guilty.
The belief in it.
The belief in it, the belief in that. And so whatever way that you may be suffering right now, the way to be set free from your suffering is to take your case, your guilty case, to the higher court, which is God's judgment, and let yourself hear God's final say, God's judgment on you. And let it tell you you're innocent, you're guiltless. Even if you made a mistake, you're still innocent. You haven't changed anything in reality. Nothing has happened. You're still exactly as God created you. They are still as God created them. And so nothing happened. You are innocent. So whatever way you're suffering, take your perception or your belief in guilt and judgment to God and let God's final judgment on you set you free from guilt.
We hear a lot of the lessons in the Course of Miracles that tell us that I am still as God created me. Mm-hmm. And the core of that, what it's saying is, I'm still as innocent as the first moment that I was brought into existence. Mm-hmm. I'm still innocent as I've always been. I'm still innocent as God ever made me to be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, it's like, it's just like the Course says, and that we've heard before, know the truth and the truth will set you free. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that no matter what you think you've done that has made you think that you deserve punishment, has made you feel guilty in your perception, the truth is that whatever mistakes you've made, you can't change the truth. You can't change what that person was created to be, guiltless. You can't change what you became created to be, guiltless. You can't change eternal love. You can't change reality from how reality was created to be by the author of reality. You can't do anything. And because you can't change reality, you can't change the truth for yourself or anyone else, then you can't be guilty. The guilty are ones who are like, oh God, I did something bad. I really damaged something. Like something was perfect, and then now it's not perfect, and that's why I'm guilty, because I really did some real damage. But if you know that you can't do any real damage to yourself or to another, you can't change reality, you can't change eternal love, then there's nothing to feel guilty about, and then you know that you're still innocent. So when you accept the judgment, God's final judgment on you as sinless, you are set free. Now, what is it that you need to be set free from right now? What is it that you feel imprisoned by, bound by, shackled by, limited by, held back by? What is it? What is it you need to feel set free from? This is the way to allow yourself to be set free from whatever it is that you feel is shackling you or limiting you. Okay, or holding you down or holding you back from what? From happiness. This is it. Okay. It says, and God's final judgment of your sinlessness, that's the judgment in which all things are freed with you.
All things.
All things.
Not just you.
Not just you.
And notice how it says all things.
Yeah.
So it's not just the person that you're living with.
Right.
It's not just the person at your job place.
Right.
It's not just the person driving in the vehicle next to you that cut you off in traffic. Mm-hmm. It's all things. So innocence applies to everybody and all everything. So that applies to my job, to my vehicle, to my body, to my bank account, to my house, to the weather, to everything. And when we start seeing that everything is innocent, I've been playing poker this week up at because I love playing poker, and I've been practicing these ideas. I've been sharing them with Anna. Every time, like, somebody would beat me in a hand and I would lose a big pot, rather than my old behavior where I'd go, oh, that person, they were being sneaky, they
Mhm.
tricked me, and
Bluffing.
they took a bunch of my poker chips from me, that person,
And they did it on purpose.
And instead of that,
Mhm.
I would do, you know, that Happy Gilmore, instead of throw my golf club at them, I would just take a deep breath and I would tell myself, everything is good. Everything is going fine. I don't need to be upset about nothing. And boy, my experience by the end of the night was just one of total joy.
Yes.
Because I had released everything.
Yes.
I didn't, and not just the people, but the cards.
The cards, the
I
game.
start getting mad at the actual deck of cards. Man, I can't even get some good cards, the stupid cards. And but to release everybody and everything, and then watch what happens to your experience.
Exactly.
It lines up with your internal belief. So if our life is going crummy, it's because we have a crummy belief.
Exactly. So you free up your mind from the guilt judgment, and then you freed up your poker game from judgment. You know, it's freed with you.
And I love it. This is, as you just read here, this is the judgment in which all things are freed with me.
Yes, right.
So I'm now freeing up the person that I'm playing the game with. I'm freeing up the cards, the seat I'm sitting on, the room I'm in. Everything is getting the same equal verdict.
That's right.
Of innocence.
Yes.
I release you, I release you, I release that, I release this, I release that, and all of a sudden it's like, it seems like magic. The Course calls it a miracle.
Right.
It's like the paradigm of your experience just dramatically shifts and changes. And it's not because you did anything outside of you.
Right.
You did everything inside of you, where the power is. Is to just change your decision and the way you're going to look at things. Innocently.
Yeah, what you did was you took your judgment to the higher court, and you asked for the higher court's judgment. And when the higher court gave its judgment of sinlessness, you accepted it. You know, that's what happened. That's what you did differently. You know, you didn't have to do anything physically different, except you just did something different in your mind. You took your judgment on yourself and you took it to the higher court.
Now, we've been in Mexico for 6 months, and having come back, and if you haven't played any kind of game, whether it's poker, Monopoly, or whatever, and if you haven't been playing for a while, you tend to be what they call rusty.
Yes.
So me coming back being rusty, but applying these principles, I want you to calculate in your calculator what are the odds that 2 nights ago when I played,
2 nights in a row.
I played in a tournament with 64 players, and the top 4 players, we decided to chop the money equally instead of playing it down to first place. And then the very next day I went and played again, kept applying principles. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to win and make money at the end, because even if I get kicked out of the tournament, I still have to cling on to this understanding and belief that everything's innocent. I can't change my belief in the middle of the stream because things didn't go the way I wanted them to go. I have to trust in the process. I have to trust in what's going on and be willing to give that innocence. But in this particular story, I really believe it's Spirit was trying to teach me a lesson here. The next night I go again, instead of 64 players, there are 65 players, and I ended up chopping last night the heads up with one player. Now this other player had 3 to 4 times more chips than I did at the end, and I said, if you ever want to chop, I was just joking around because I was thinking surely they won't want to do that because, you know, they got so many more chips than I do. And immediately the player goes, yeah, I'll chop. So,
meaning split the winnings.
But
you
what
know,
are the
split the first
chances
place.
that 2 times in a row
2 nights
you
in a row.
play in a tournament and win, you tie for first
Yes.
place with whoever else is at the end there?
Exactly.
Coincidence? Maybe.
Right. I think not.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I don't think these principles are made so that we can go to poker halls and make money. But I do believe that these principles are there so that they can be demonstrated to us, the change that happens in our life once when we start applying the principles within, that everything is innocent, everything is good. And the principle I was applying to those, as Anna knows, is this concept that my function was given to me by God, and what that function is to be happy. And so when I'm sitting at the poker table and I would lose a hand, I would literally say to myself, instead of getting upset, I'd go, my function is to be happy. And God wills for my happiness. And within minutes, whatever amount of the pot I lost, I would get at least that or more back.
Yes.
And so it was really a wonderful display of, at times I was really just miraculously freaking out, is the best way to say it, of these principles that have worked right in front of me.
That's beautiful. Hi, Bonnie. Hugs and love to you, sweetie. Lovely to see you. Beautiful. All right. So it says, so this judgment, God's judgment of sinlessness on you, is a judgment which frees not only you, but everything, like Greg was talking about, you know, his poker game or whatever else.
Everything.
It brings all things along with you, okay?
And imagine if we applied that to our relationship.
Whoa. Imagine that. Exactly. Yeah, there are times when we need our relationship to be freed from our egos, for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so when you and I accept God's judgment of sinlessness on us, then our relationship is also freed up with us. You know, our relationship, our jobs, our bodies, whatever it is that we're doing, right?
And then at the end of the night, we can both be winners together.
Exactly. It's a great way of saying all things are freed up with us. And it says, time pauses as eternity comes near, and silence lies across the world, that everyone may hear this judgment on you. Okay, so when this is God's judgment on us, and when we allow God's judgment on us, what happens is time pauses, eternity comes near, and silence lies across the world, that everybody might hear what we're about to hear from God on every one of us.
And so
are you ready for that?
So now not just us are hearing, are innocent,
right,
but everybody.
Right.
So now those around us are hearing. First, we're going to hear our innocent proclaimed, and then others are going to hear it. And that's when I believe we go into our day, and it just seems like people are just loving on you left and right, everywhere you seem to
Everything
go.
seems to go smoothly.
People are helping you, bending
easily.
over to help you out. Total strangers helping you out, being kind and loving.
Exactly. So here it is. Here's what God's judgment on us is. Okay, it's this: guiltless are you, eternal, free, and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Where is the world, and where is sorrow now? Okay. Now, that's God's judgment on us. Okay. So we're like, we come to the higher court, God, and we go, oh God, please judge my case. Please judge this case for me, my case. And God says, wonderful. Here's my final verdict. You're holy, you're guiltless, you're eternal, you're free, you're complete, you're at peace forever in my heart. Any other questions? And as we're hearing the higher court, God's final judgment on us say that, which by the way is obviously the opposite of our judgment on ourselves and the ego's judgment on us, as we're listening to that, time pauses. Time pauses, yeah, that flow of time, past, present, future, actually time pauses. Eternity comes near and silence lies across the world so that everyone can hear what you're hearing, the higher court's verdict on you. Wow.
In part, I think that time pauses because a lot of us believe that in the future, not right now, we have to wait for God's judgment.
Exactly.
We have to live our lives.
Wait till you die.
Then we have to die in a car accident or something.
Or whatever.
And then have a funeral, and then we go on to this place called
Pearly Gates.
The Pearly Gates.
Wait for some wait in line.
And then wait in line a bunch of other people that are going to get judged, and then look at them and go, what do you think?
What are you here for?
What do you think your chances are? Oh, not very good.
All right, but cross my fingers. Yeah. Cross my fingers, hope to die. Stick a needle in my eye.
And so time pauses. In other words, you don't have to wait any longer to hear this judgment. You don't have to wait to die. You don't have to wait for tomorrow.
Yes.
Time pauses. Yes. Time has stopped. Judgment is now.
Yes,
and that judgment is eternal, meaning that it will always be that way.
It's unconditional.
Why? Because it's always been that way.
It's eternal. It doesn't change. Beautiful.
And that's why it says, at peace, what? Forever in the heart of God.
Exactly. You're like God saying, you're in my heart forever. Not if and when you do da-da-da. You're in my heart forever, unconditionally.
Yeah, we've been taught that, well, Anna, you can be at peace in my heart right now, but maybe not forever.
Right. Not if you do you know what.
And how comforting is it to know that this judgment is an everlasting judgment.
That's right.
That's why we're taught from days of old that God doesn't change. God is an unchangeable God. In other words, God is stable, a firm foundation in which we can trust that this judgment is good today and this judgment can be redeemed 10,000 years from now. We can come in and go, do you still feel the same way that you felt the last 10,000 years for me, God? Yep.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
You're at peace in my heart.
Forever.
Still, forever.
You're complete and healed and whole and free and guiltless and sinless forever. Course in Miracles defines holy as sinless. So when it says holy are you, it means sinless are you. You're sinless. You're guiltless. You're still not guilty. How about now, God? No, still not guilty. Yeah, but how about now? No, still not guilty. Yeah, but what about them? Still not guilty. Well, what about now? I had this crazy weekend. Still not guilty. Still sinless. still my beloved in my heart forever. Okay. So in other words, God has judged us exactly opposite that we have judged ourselves. We've judged ourselves to be like, I'm only lovable and loving and worthy of love if okay. You are only sinless and loving if right? God is no, you are sinless, you are eternal, you are free, you are complete, you are at peace forever, in my heart forever, no questions asked, no exceptions, that's it.
And the end of paragraph 1, if this is proclaimed around and around the world, you're innocent, you're guiltless, then where in the world could you go? Where in the world could you go where there would be sorrow?
Right.
Where's sorrow or fear left?
Exactly.
But we would be feeling sad and sorrowful and in fear if we still haven't come to trust that judgment.
Exactly.
In other words, we're still thinking, well, I still could get in trouble to the point that God could
yes.
be mad.
I still could be guilty if I did this.
And, you know, Anna was saying that A Course in Miracles is on the top 10 satanic list of books. And one of the reasons is a lot of the religions get mad at A Course in Miracles because you're trying to take punishment, the idea of God's going to punish you away, because they love and believe in that.
It's a cornerstone.
Belief system.
It's a cornerstone.
And so it's almost like they're staying up screaming, don't take hell away from us.
Don't take sin away.
We need hell to be real.
We need sin and guilt.
And what is hell but a place of torment? And God's saying, I'm not going to take your hell that you want away from you. If you want to believe in that,
knock yourself out.
Just look around.
Yeah, you're in good company. Hello, I mean.
Just look at the world you're experiencing right now. You're experiencing pain.
You can have it.
Suffering, lack, disease, hurt.
All the things that are in hell.
All the things. Death.
All the characteristics of hell.
Misery. Tears. Sadness. Loneliness.
Torture.
Fear. All the things that you would expect in hell. Are right here on planet Earth if you want them. And you can continue experiencing this life of so-called hell as long as you want to. So God's not trying to take anything away from us.
Not at all. Not at all, you know. And so, you know, what we're hearing is that God is just waiting patiently with infinite patience for us to come to the higher court, God, and say, what is your judgment on me? Okay? Because God can't force it on us, because God is loving. And so God's just waiting for us to bring our case, our guilt, to the higher court, to God's judgment, and ask for it.
And how smart would God be anyway if God had to wait, 80 years to see how you are, to judge you, to finally come up with a decision of the verdict on you?
Yes, exactly.
A real God would already know this from the beginning, and that's why it would be God.
Yes, right.
Not having to wait some 70, 80, 90 years, sitting there going, let's see.
I wonder how they're going to turn out.
I wonder how this case is going to end. I wish I was God. I would probably already know that.
Oh yeah, I am God. Beautiful. And so that's God's judgment. Guiltless are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. And if that's true, where is the world and where is sorrow now? Now, is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? Is this what you think about yourself every day, teacher of God? Do you wake up in the morning going, sinless am I am eternal, I'm free, I'm whole, I'm peace forever in the heart of God. Yeah, all right, now I'll have some coffee. Is that how you start your day? Is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? In other words, do you believe that this judgment on yourself is completely true? No, not yet. Not yet.
Repeats it twice.
It repeats not yet twice.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. Okay, that's obvious. That's right. That's not how I wake up in the morning every day thinking about myself. It's not how I start my day. It's usually not how I end my day thinking, sinless am I. I'm eternal. I'm free. I'm complete. I'm at peace forever in the heart of God. Hallelujah. Is that your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? Obviously not yet. Not yet.
In other words, we haven't yet learned how to think as Creator thinks.
Exactly. We haven't learned to judge ourselves like our Creator has judged us. Okay.
And I'm glad you are thinking or practicing.
Yes.
Because we're practicing too.
Exactly. We're practicing, and our practicing is what produces miracles. That's where the miracles in our lives come from, is when we practice this. Obviously we haven't mastered it yet, or we would need A Course in Miracles, but but miracles are what come from practicing that.
And practicing, an example of practicing is when I get mad at my brother or sister, for me to pause for a moment and remind myself before I issue judgment of what the truth is, according to God, not me, but according to God. What's the truth here?
Right.
Oh, Anna is innocent.
Yes.
Oh, well, I want to say she's something else. But practicing is pausing. That's how we apply these principles and these truths.
That's right.
Is I have to pause for a moment instead of react right away and go, "You idiot! Why did you do that? Blah blah blah. You never.
You always. You never."
Yeah. Start using those kind of words.
The ego judgments always start with either you always or you never.
And the reason is because according to the ego. All the ego is a false belief system. That's what the ego is. A false belief system. And that false belief system says you always are guilty.
Yes. And you're never innocent.
God's belief system is you're always innocent.
Yes.
But when we're fighting, we don't say things like that. You're always so loving. You're always doing that. You're always so kind to me.
You're always releasing me from guilt.
Yes.
But that's really what the ego is really upset about.
But when we're mad, we go, you're always hanging up and interrupting me and cutting me off and trying to trip me up and disrespecting me. And you're always. Because that's the words that the belief system of the ego doctrine preaches.
Yes.
And God's preaching always too.
Yes.
But it's quite the opposite.
Exactly. You're always sinless, and you're always free, and you're always complete, and you're always at peace forever in God's heart. Right. That's the always, you know. And then in God's judgment, you're never guilty. You know. And that doesn't mean you aren't mistaken. Yes, you can be mistaken. You can choose fear over love, you know, for lots of time. So you can be mistaken. You just can't be guilty. You can't be sinful. You can't make a mistake that can't be corrected by love. Okay, sin is the belief that you can make a mistake that can't be corrected even by love. Okay, sinlessness is that you can be mistaken, but you can't. But that mistake can always be corrected by love. Okay. Now, it says, is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? Do you believe that this is wholly true? No, not yet, not yet. But believing this God's judgment, believing that it's completely true, that is still your goal. It's still why you are here. Wow. So what's your goal of being here? Is to believe that this is completely true. To believe that it's completely true. That sinless am I. I'm eternal. I'm free. I'm complete. And I'm at peace forever in the heart of God. That's why I'm here. No, I don't believe it yet. No, I don't. But it's still my goal. It's still why I am here.
I love that, because how many of us walk around in life and we're always saying, God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, what do you want from me?
What do you have for me? Please show me the door, the pathway.
Yes.
And God's answering it for you and I right here and now, saying the reason you're here, the reason I'm here, is we have a goal.
Yes.
And that goal is to learn that we are innocent.
Yes.
That we're guiltless.
Yeah.
And so is everybody and everything around us.
Yes.
Now you can see how far we have to go on reaching this goal. You know, that seems like a lofty goal. Wow. You know, sometimes they say don't set goals higher than you can achieve. You'll only burn out. But if God set the goal, then you know it's obtainable.
It's totally obtainable. Beautiful. And I love it. Irene says, unfortunately, I was triggered like that recently, so disappointed in myself.
Well, don't feel bad. I was just a few days ago. probably 10 times over you.
That's right. If you wanna feel good about it, you wanna feel innocent about that, Irene, check in with Greg.
Yeah, but you see,
Yeah.
Irene, the thing is that's why it's a goal. So
That's right. It's a goal.
You know, we have a goal.
Yes.
Anna and I have a goal to find a home in Colorado now.
Mm-hmm.
We're living with some relatives here in the basement, and we have a goal. So every time we look at a house, we might come back disappointed that didn't work out, but really it crosses one off of the list. In other words, it gets us closer to the goal.
Yes.
Well, we know what isn't going to be the one.
Right.
And so we're moving toward the goal. And so, like you said, we're disappointed in ourselves, but don't be disappointed in yourself. Just stay mindful of the goal.
Yes.
Keep reminding ourselves of what the goal is innocence.
Exactly.
Innocent. And that's why it has to be a goal, because we're not there.
We're not. We don't believe that this is wholly true about ourselves, and that means it's still a goal for ourselves. But achieving that goal is why we are here. And Irene, if we could accomplish it perfectly and accept God's judgment on ourselves completely perfectly, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't need A Course in Miracles.
Right. And the author wouldn't be telling us the truth, which is, have you accepted this yet? No, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
It's
Exactly.
just reiterating to us that the author of A Course in Miracles, that love, that God, that Spirit, the angels of heaven, the universe, all know that we have not yet achieved the goal. So they're not upset with us or disappointed in us.
Yeah, they're not disappointed.
They're just happy as heck that we have finally made it a goal.
Exactly, which is the ultimate. They're like, hallelujah, no worries. At least it's their goal, which means we know they're going to achieve it.
Yeah, they're going in the right direction.
Course in Miracles says, as soon as it is your goal, then your goal is your accomplishment is guaranteed. You know, as soon as it's your goal, then it's as good as done. It's just a matter of time, which isn't even real. So, you know, so just remember that when you're tempted to feel disappointed in yourself. Okay. Irene says, then I was told to live what I preach. Zingo. Yeah, we're all told that. All Course in Miracles teachers are all told at some point, why don't you live what you teach?
We just did a class on that.
Yes,
exactly. A couple weeks
That's
ago.
right.
You've done really good.
You've taught well
at teaching these ideas,
right.
But you yourself have not yet accepted the ideas for yourself.
Exactly.
But you're doing great.
Hey, that's great, you know.
At teaching the ideas of innocence.
And that's how you start. That's how all teachers of God need to start. That's how we all start, and that's good, you know. And, you know, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Irene. That's perfect. Okay. So it says, in other words, it is your function to prepare yourself to hear God's judgment on you of sinlessness and to recognize that God's judgment of sinlessness on you is true. Now, just one teeny tiny instant of complete belief in God's judgment of sinlessness on you, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to go beyond belief to certainty. Wow, one instant of complete belief that I am as sinless as God has judged me to be will take me beyond I believe it to I know it. Wonderful. And that's because one instant out of time can bring time's end. Wow.
No more having to wait.
No more having to wait.
To stand before the pearly gates and God's throne.
And shaking.
And trembling. Oh, what's the verdict gonna be?
What's the verdict gonna be? Oh, I hope it's gonna be okay. I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to be, you know, in purgatory forever.
Can you imagine if that's how it really was? But the story is you're standing in this, you know, mile-long line, and the first person when you get there steps up to the throne, and God goes, innocent. well done. Welcome into my joy and happiness.
Into my heart forever.
Into my heart forever. And then you're going, lucky person.
Lucky duck.
And then the next person, same thing. Next person, same thing. Next person, same thing. And 45 minutes goes by and not one single person, a different verdict was read off, and you're sitting there going,
You're like,
what's going on
why
here?
was I afraid and guilty all those years?
This is ridiculous.
Well,
I thought hardly nobody was going to win the lotto here.
Apparently, they'll let anybody into heaven.
I know that one guy that they just
Exactly.
let in. That's crazy.
Apparently, they'll let anybody in. And then you think you'd be like, woo, yay! But then you're like, I don't want to go in heaven if everybody's getting into heaven. That's the ego.
And that's really how the world operates, is it's one step at a time. When you can start seeing this person as innocent, now that person, now that person, now that person. And what would that do if you were standing in line? It would build your faith up higher and higher if you weren't hearing anybody guilty.
Yes.
Well, that must be me too.
Yes.
Maybe I'm innocent too.
Exactly.
If all of these that go before me are innocent. And so, it's, as we were saying earlier by our friend here, practicing.
Yes.
We're practicing the truth. And so one step at a time, I'm practicing. Practicing until I hear for the same verdict for everything and everybody.
And the way to practice that, like Greg was saying, is sentence 8, judge not.
Judge not.
Because if you do judge, then you're going to be just judging yourself, which means you're going to delay God's final judgment of sinlessness on you.
In other words, time continues on because now you're delaying what the real judgment is going to be. You're putting the real judgment off.
Yes.
Every time you judge somebody or something outside of you as guilty, you're putting off the judgment day.
Yes, that's right.
Because it's the wrong judgment.
Exactly. You're putting off the time when you receive God's judgment of total sinlessness on you.
You're putting off, as you said, the Supreme Court's ruling.
Exactly.
You're the lower court.
Yes.
Making a ruling.
Right. Exactly. Very good. And what is your judgment on the world, O teacher of God?
I love when the course talks like that.
Yes, I know, me too.
Oh, teacher of God.
Teacher of God. What is your judgment on yourself? What is your judgment on the world? Is it sinlessness forever? Is it, teacher of God, have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of love's judgment in yourself? Or, teacher of God, do you still attempt to take God's role from God? Now that you mention it, God. Now that you mention it, no, I haven't learned to stand aside and hear love's judgment on me. And no, I haven't. So sorry. I'm still trying to take God's role from God and judge myself.
Isn't it funny that a lot of us have been taught to believe that judgment comes later on down the road
from God,
but yet but yet we're obviously so convinced of we already know. We don't need to wait down the road for his judgment.
I can judge.
I already know what his judgment is, and it's you're an idiot.
Exactly. You're welcome, God.
You're welcome. I took care of this one for you, God.
You don't know what he's been doing. I do. I live with him.
I've been keeping an eye on her.
I keep tabs. I have a little file on my phone. I love that. Have you learned to... What is your judgment on the world, O teacher of God? Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself, teacher of God? Or teacher of God, are you still attempting to take God's role from God? Okay, little question, little honesty test there. Instead of taking God's role of judgment on children of God from God and doing it yourself wrongly, how about you do this, teacher of God? How about you just learn to be quiet, Why? Because God's voice is heard in stillness. Okay, great. Okay, instead of taking God's role of judgment on creation from God and doing it yourself, just learn to be quiet. So apparently, not judging others and taking God's role of judgment from God is the same as being quiet.
And learning is the same word as practicing.
Yes, exactly.
Practice to be quiet.
Yes.
Practice to be quiet.
Yes.
And in doing that practice, instead of when you get angry, you've been practicing to react.
To
and,
judge.
And you notice when you're upset and angry, your mind is not quiet. It's playing on repeat over and over and over what they did.
And it gets louder and louder.
It gets louder and louder and more constant. And then you start adding more to the story and adding more to the story.
Yep.
But to be quiet means to let go of the story.
Judge not.
If you let go of the story, there's nothing left but quiet.
Exactly. If you're not going to be taking God's role of judging, then you can be quiet. That's what it means to stop taking God's role of judgment. You know, you can't be judging others and be quiet. They can't do both at the same time. Judging is not quiet.
Okay, you can't be quiet and then be talking, condemning.
Yes, exactly. And the reason that you need to learn to be quiet is because God's voice is heard in stillness. And God's judgment of sinlessness comes to all who do what? Stand aside in quiet listening. And what is quiet listening? Where you're standing aside and waiting for God's judgment. God's judgment of what? Sinlessness. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful instructions. Okay? You know, when you notice that you're judging because your mind ain't quiet, it's loud, and you're not happy, then that's your cue to get quiet, which means stop taking the role of judgment from God as if you are God. I'm God. I'll take it from here. I created this person and myself and everything, and so I can now judge what this means and what to do. Okay?
So to be quiet, listening, and to wait on God. To wait on God. When we get angry, we're not waiting. We already have the verdict and the judgment in our hand, and we're ready to issue it.
Yes.
We're not waiting on nothing. There's an old prophecy that says if you wait on the Lord, if you wait on love, if you wait on God, you will renew your strength. When you're angry, your strength is getting sucked out of you.
You're spilling it.
Right.
You're wasting it. You're wasting your energy.
But when you wait,
yes,
and again, that's the practicing,
yes,
is okay, I'm angry,
yes,
I want to judge,
right,
I want to condemn, oh yeah, what was I told to do? Stop and wait until I listen,
yes,
which would mean if I'm listening, then I'm getting ready to hear somebody's innocence proclaimed around and around and around the world, everywhere. Where I'm standing here, so that would be part of where the world is, and so I need to wait until I hear my brother or sister's innocence being proclaimed, because that's what I want to hear about me.
Yes, right.
And so if that's what I want to hear about me on Judgment Day, which is actually already over with,
right,
then that's what I need to wait to hear for you. If I'm not willing to wait and hear that for you, then I'm going to have an experience in my day of not hearing that for me.
Exactly.
It's going to come out in all different places in my day.
Yep, exactly. Beautiful. All right, paragraph 3. So see if you recognize yourself in this. Greg and I definitely did when we were reading it earlier. Yeah. We were like, check.
We were
check,
trying
check,
not to laugh while we were reading paragraph 3.
Exactly. So see if you recognize yourself in this next paragraph, okay, this next few lines. You who are sometimes sad You who are sometimes angry, you who sometimes feel your just due is not given, you who feel like your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt, you give up these foolish thoughts. They are too small and too meaningless to occupy your innocent mind an instant longer. And the reason that they are too meaningless and small to occupy your holy mind an instant longer is because God's judgment of sinlessness is waiting for you to set you free. Now, what can the world hold out to you, regardless of your judgments on the world's gifts, that you would rather have than God's judgment of your sinlessness? Now, you will be judged, and you will be judged in fairness and in honesty. And that's because there is no deceit in God. And that means God's promises are sure. Only remember that. In other words, God's promises have guaranteed that God's judgment of your sinlessness and God's judgment alone will be accepted in the end. It is your function to make this end be soon. What end? The end where we all go, oh, God has judged us as sinless, so sinless we are. Okay? It's our function to make that end be soon. It is our function to hold God's judgment of sinlessness in our heart, which means to offer God's judgment of sinlessness to all the world, to keep God's judgment of our sinlessness safe in our heart. That's our function.
Isn't it wonderful that we now heard tonight that we have a goal, we have a mission. You know, we're missionaries of heaven, and we've come here to God's creation for a task at hand is to protect it and to make it safe. And now we've been given the goal of how to do that, and that is to see all things and everybody as innocent, guiltless, and at peace in the heart of God. It doesn't matter whether they're in my heart right now. To keep God's kingdom safe and protected is to realize the truth of what's really going on. Oh, you are at peace in the heart of God. And if I want to help protect and keep the kingdom of God safe, I need to see it as God sees it. I need to know it as God knows it. And God knows it as you being innocent. And so that's what it is to be a warrior of heaven. It's not to go around shouting condemnation to the world and judgment is at hand and
repent, you guilty sinners. Right, that's not our function.
That's not keeping the world, God's creation safe.
Exactly. Keeping God's creation safe is keeping in our hearts God's judgment of sinlessness in our hearts, with no exceptions, no conditions, you know, for ourselves and others. And I love Chris says, wait and hear innocence. Infinite patience produces immediate results. Innocent. And Shahira says, missionaries of heaven, not guilty.
Miss you already, Chris.
Yes, we miss you, Chris. Precious one.
I saw a dance video today that one of our beautiful, mighty companions shared with us, and it was so wonderful seeing everybody back in our hometown of Ahihi dancing and celebrating.
Oh, so sweet. You know, so beautiful. We are holding you all in our heart, our heart of sinlessness. We're holding you all in our sinless heart.
And luckily for us, that is effortless.
Yes, exactly.
We don't have to put any effort into that.
Holding you in our heart as sinless forever.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. So it's 8:30. So why don't we stop here and
beautiful
and amazing.
That's
Literally,
like
what? We finished
timing.
a whole section a minute before time to stop our class.
Wow.
See, this
What
is a Course in
timing.
Miracles. Amazing. We appreciate you all so much. Thank you for joining this healing circle. And do not forget, you are innocent now and forever. And your only work here is to accept God's judgment of your innocence for yourself.
All right, we have a goal this week.
We have a goal.
We're going to be practicing together, and let's see how it goes. And don't forget, just because it's a goal doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it. Doesn't mean if we're perfect at it, we wouldn't need to have a goal.
Yeah, or to practice. Yes.
So let's just don't beat ourselves up when we slip and stumble and not accomplish what we're trying to achieve. Just the good news is that you're on the path of trying to do the will of God, and that's what, as my friend here says, makes us missionaries of heaven. Is we're here to do the will of God. The will of God is that you are innocent.
The will of God is to accept God's judgment on ourselves.
And the will of God is that our function be complete, which is to be happy.
Yes.
And who is ever happy if they're guilty?
Nobody.
If you're standing in the courtroom and you're waiting for that verdict, and the mallet comes down and says guilty, nobody's happy with that decree.
Yeah.
But if the mallet comes down and says innocent, set the captive free, you are rejoicing and dancing and shouting and hugging your friends. I'm innocent. I'm free. And so let's get on the love boat with heaven and start sharing. That is what they call the good news. Go and preach the good news. The good news is you're innocent. You're innocent.
Yes, you're
innocent.
Sinless. You're sinless now and forever.
You're sinless.
Yes. And so, mighty companions, go into this section and take the where it says what God's judgment on us is, and write it down and put it somewhere and memorize it. Truly, I mean, nothing could be more worthy of memorizing and using when you are not feeling innocent than this right here. Sinless am I, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. And if that's true, where is the world and where is sorrow now?
And that's in sentence 11, paragraph 1.
Yes.
And what Anna said is right. If you take what the author here is telling you exactly what to say.
To yourself.
You have a goal, and you don't have to make up what to do. We're given what to do. Exactly what to say. So every time this week that you're tempted to judge wrongly, then, as Anna says, pull the paper out until you have it memorized, and then you don't need to pull the paper out anymore.
Right.
I'm telling you to do this because it's what I did in the last few days. I just kept repeating a workbook lesson that it told me to say. And you literally do not have to analyze it and go, well, instead of thinking that this person's an idiot, they're whole and complete, they're holy, they're guiltless, they're not sinful, they're eternally free, and they're at peace in the heart of God forever. And then analyzing how that has to be true. You don't have to analyze anything. Just say it. Just say it and let it come out of your consciousness, and you can let it go from there. And it will change your circumstances.
Absolutely.
You won't have to do anything.
It will set you free.
That's why the Course says you don't have to understand these principles in order for them to work.
Exactly.
You don't have to analyze it and understand it and try to get how it makes sense. Just repeat the idea, and your goal will come to happen.
Right. It will take care of it itself. Exactly. Beautiful. And Irene, it is Teacher's Manual, question number 15, paragraph 1, sentence 11.
Teacher's Manual, is each one to be judged in the end. That's question number 15
Yes.
of the teacher's manual.
Yes.
Paragraph 1, sentence 11.
Right, and that's your. Is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? You know, this is the judgment that you want to be using on yourself because it's the judgment of God on you. We love you guys. You're so amazing. We're so grateful to God for you. We're so grateful that you joined your energy to this healing circle and
Thank
made
you
it
for
stronger.
all your hearts that you've been
Yes.
posting. I love seeing them go up the screen as we're teaching. It just gives me goosebumps everywhere.
Aw.
Thank you guys.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.